Hi, I'm Rodney A. Brooks. Welcome to RodneyABrooks.com. Today we're talking to Mr. Eric Bailey, who is founder and CEO of Bailey Wealth Advisors, which is based in Silver Spring, Maryland. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so actually it brings us right into my next question, which is about couples and financial planning. And we know, even with couples, people have roles and responsibilities that play to their strengths. And one of them generally handles the finances. But let's talk about the importance of both spouses or both members of the couple being involved, at least knowing who the financial planner is and being involved in the financial planning process.
Yeah, we think it's critically important, and I won't say it's often, but there are times when one spouse finds us, they want to proceed. The other spouse, usually the one who was responsible for the finances, say, what do we need them for, And there's a perfect story. I guess it was probably 1990. This woman, she was a executive at a local nonprofit, and she was turning 62. She was going to retire in about 3 years, and her husband was a executive at Lockheed Martin. He'd grown up through the ranks, engineer. She says, hey, look, he's been handling our finances the whole time. I've heard good things about you, Eric. I want us to sit down. And his thing was, I got this. We're here, etc. And he didn't want to have anything to do with it. But then somehow she convinced him to come in, and he saw what it was we were doing, asked enough questions about how is he managing taxes, is he paying for them, or is he planning for them, how does he know whether, what's his mortality assumption for retirement, what rate of return does, and all of a sudden he went from here to here, So normally when people are sitting in their legs and their arms are crossed, they're guarded. When they're laying back, they're more receptive. So that happens quite often, that couples are not on the same page. But one of the things we ask them to bring when they do come in together, and it's important that they are together, because the essential nature of what we do is to help you realize your vision. And if you don't have a vision, or the vision is not a shared vision, then there's going to be too much conflict on the path forward. And so what we have families do is put together a vision that they want, not only for themselves, but their families, the community, their children, and that helps them understand that the money is just a tool to get us to where we ultimately want to be.
Now, sometimes you do have to be a marriage counselor, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm a psychologist, a marriage counselor, a financial advisor, but, I think one of my unique abilities is I'm a people person. So it's easy to understand both parties' sides and help them to understand that there is a middle ground that we can get to where everyone's happy. And because, in some families, you got a spendthrift where one person, they're just like, hey, the money is here to be enjoyed today. And the other person's fairly disciplined, so they're saving their money, et cetera, et cetera. And just a recent couple, the woman came to us. She was prepared. He was not prepared. He didn't want to do it. He ended up finally, acquiescing, and then he became the lead person, and ultimately, he moved all of his money to us, and she was like, well, I want to think about it, and then after about 6 months, she saw the performance of his money versus her money, and she's like, well, wait a minute, I'm the one that found him, how come, I want to get on the plane now, so, it varies by household, but I think that once people can identify a shared vision for what they think financial independence, financial security, because women generally want security. Men want independence. How do you make sure that the definition of those two marry together?
Okay. Now, there have to be cases where the spouses never really come together. So what do you do in those cases where they just don't agree? or don't. Sometimes I guess sometimes they don't agree that their financial advisor is needed, but sometimes they just don't agree on a strategy for financial planning.
Well, there are multiple strategies going on because you're dealing with a number of areas of their lives, and I think what brings people to the same page is we're able to quantify the impact of the various alternatives we bring you. So if for example, right now I've got a woman, she retired from a major corporation, and she's got a heavy concentration of stock in her old employer. And so her concern was, well, hey, look, I want to start drawing down on that money, but, how do we go about doing that? The husband's saying, oh, we should have sold the stock a long time ago, da-da-da-da-da. Well, hey, that horse is out of the barn. You didn't sell it. So now what we've got to do is unwind it. The point being is we were able to show her, who was saying, the husband wanted to just sell it all and pay the capital gains. The wife didn't want to pay much taxes at all. So what we were able to do is show them what happens if you sell it all now, what's the cost? What happens if you drip it out? What happens if you do a covered call strategy? And what happens if you do a charitable remainder trust? And quantifying each of those, two people who were on opposite sides of the spectrum now saw that there was a middle ground that got us both what we wanted.
Okay. So, do you have people who come in and say, I'm ready to retire, I've actually filed my papers, and then you have to say, well, when you look at all the numbers, I don't think you can retire.
Haven't had that in years, but that does happen from time to time because there's an exercise we take people through which says, are you financially ready versus emotionally ready? And there's 4 quadrants on it, and essentially some people are emotionally ready, but they're not financially ready, which is what you're talking about. And other people are financially ready, or they're financially ready, and one spouse says, what am I going to do? So he's or she's not emotionally ready. So the question becomes, particularly in the former, where I put in my papers, I'm ready to go, okay? Now we have to say, okay, well, you have a couple of choices here because your finances don't get you the way you say you want to be. You can either work longer, which I don't want to do that, okay? You can spend less during retirement. You can increase the rate of return, or you can live a shorter life. Nobody wants to live a shorter life. So that leaves us with taking more risk with your investments or living on less money. And in many instances, what those people will do is decide either they can stay a little longer or they're going to do some supplemental activity during retirement to generate income.
Okay, so one spouse is ready. One spouse is ready to retire, and the other one isn't. How often do you come up across that, and does that cause issues?
No, we see that a lot. I mean, because some people are, their engines need to be fed, so they're gonna do something. So the one spouse retires, the other one doesn't, or the other one does, but part of our process, again, that's wealth management, is to help them understand what's the next phase of your life look like. So you may not be working in the industry you were working in before, but one question we do ask people a lot is, if there was one problem in the world, and the world is full of problems, if you could change one or have an impact on one, which one would it be? Most people fall back in their chair and have to ponder it a while, but once they sort of figure that out, then to the person that's not ready to retire, that may be their next phase, where they can be passionate about it, put the same amount of energy, know that they're not sitting around the house watching TV all day.
Okay, and so people are working longer now. Does that make your job easier or harder?
Well, for our clientele, they're not working longer.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I would say for the large percentage of America that has found itself behind in the retirement savings, particularly the middle to moderate income group, they are working longer. I don't think it makes our job harder. Can't say it makes it easier, but I think it makes it a little more complex simply because they're trying to figure out in our modeling, because we do a lot of modeling, just like an economist to say, well, okay, if this variable, your expense pattern is what it is, do you want to be conservative or aggressive? Well, I want to be conservative. Okay, well, if inflation is averaged about 4% over the last 30 years, should we run it at 5% or 6%? Because the last thing you want to do is have inflation eat up your money on the back end of your retirement. Or do you think taxes are going up or going down? What if taxes go down? How does that affect you? What happens if the market drops 20% the day after you walk out of the door to retire? Do you have the wherewithal to catch up? And so what we give them is a view of what things could look like in a number of scenarios and then settle on how do we manage if we choose option 3.